What's going on, everybody? I hope everybody is having a fantastic evening. Thanks for tuning into this live stream section of Mikasa Sukasa, and I am your host, Niko House. So, many of you at this point are already well aware of Symone Sanders' little dance. It was damn near like a salsa class. The complicated steps she was going through in order to try and defend Joe Biden's comments over the crime bill. But what many of you may not be aware of is that Shaun King had some things to say about her. Now, I know this may be contrary to what you may think their relationship is, especially considering the profile picture. And Symone had some issues about what Shaun King had to say as well. But after I read to you the tweets and I show you the tweets, I'm going to talk to you really quick about the irony of all of this. Of all of this. But first, let's get to the tweets. Oh, or not. There we go. 1 second. Let's get to these tweets. So Shaun King decided to dish a little subtweet out to Symone, right? He said, I'm genuinely embarrassed that Joe Biden has black surrogates and spokespeople out here defending the 1994 mass incarceration bill that he refuses to repudiate. It's truly humiliating. Now, to my understanding, Joe doesn't have that many people out here defending that bill. I've only seen one black person doing it, and it was this woman right here. Now, she felt some type of way about this little subtweet at Shaun. She said, what's humiliating, Symone said this, what's humiliating is the cape you blindly put on for the senator for Vermont every day. He voted for the bill. No one defended the crime bill. You have my number, lest you continue to be petty on the internet. Don't personally attack me, Shaun. I hope now we are clear. I'm not going to lie. That whole exchange was weird. The whole thing was weird. Because apparently they are friends. Apparently. That's what she says. They do have each other's numbers. But just in general, the amount of hypocrisy between both of those tweets is immeasurable. I'm not even joking. Let's talk about what Shaun said first. Let's talk about Shaun. In case a lot of you don't know, Shaun King isn't the man that a lot of people think he is. And I've been on record saying this dozens of times, and I'll say a little bit more here. Shaun is in the business of exploiting black plight and black pain and the black experience for his own personal profit. That's what he does. See, the thing about Shaun is that he's proven time and time again that he is willing to put those who perpetuate the prison industrial complex in power and push for those because, well, what else is he going to write about? You have to understand, Shaun has shown over and over again that he doesn't understand anything about politics. Now, he does, however, know which way the wind blows, which obviously explains his attachment to the Bernie Sanders campaign. But what Shaun weirdly decided to leave out in his little tweet storm is some of the jigging and tap dancing that he did for another candidate who, like Biden, has a little bit of a murky relationship with the black populace when it comes to the private prison industrial complex. Because although we know Joe Biden is in large part responsible for that 94 crime bill, and we know exactly what it did. It literally put a mandate damn near on mass incarceration. Joe Biden did have to get a lot of votes pushed. He did. He couldn't do it by himself. A lot of racist old white people involved in that entire, dilemma, right? Republicans, I'm sure, weren't fighting it that much either. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, Kamala has some interesting history with putting black people in jail and profiting off of private prisons and taking money from police unions of her own. I mean, I'm sure Shaun would agree with that since he is so quick to report on every black person who is, getting wrongfully beaten, killed, arrested, whatever. It's a booming business in America when you get to be Shaun King, who only advocates for black lives whenever it's time to report on one dying, but when it's time to hold our political leaders accountable, he tells us to vote for people like Hillary Clinton, and tells us that, maybe somebody like Kamala Harris isn't that bad. But you don't have to take my word for it, because Shaun wrote a whole article about this, and I'm sure that he probably thought that a lot of people didn't see it because a lot of people did not catch it. But I was paying a lot of attention to Kamala back then. And I wanted to see who was going to tell us to forget everything she said. And guess what? Shaun King is absolutely no better at all than Symone Sanders. Let's take a look at just a piece of this article that Shaun King wrote for Kamala at the end of January. Shaun King said, in case you missed it, Senator Harris announced that she is indeed going to run for president. And it's a huge, historic deal. It is, but not for the reason that he thinks it is. Of course, Shirley Chisholm ran for president before. So Senator Harris is not the first black woman to ever run, but she is the first black woman from the Senate to run. And most people believe she probably has more of a chance to actually win than any black woman that has ever run. Maybe because we are in such a difficult time in our country right now with Trump as president. Oh, you knew that was coming. And the government being shut down the longest in our nation's history. Maybe it's easy to gloss over how big of a deal it is that Kamala Harris is running for president, but it's a huge deal. These aren't my words. These are Shaun King's words. I think she's a serious candidate. Yes, I think she could defeat Trump. She's actually a great campaigner. She's never lost an election, with the help of the Democratic Party, of course, and some police unions and some private prisons. And she's been in some tough ones. She's fought for every job she's had. I don't know if he knows the irony of that statement, but Willie Brown is going to be at the Democratic convention in California. And so maybe next week we'll get to ask him just how hard she fought for that job she has, because he literally said, we don't have to go into all the details of it, but she did not earn her job. There was some quid pro quo behavior that took place, and I placed her in her very first government authority job. I didn't say that. Willie Brown said that verbatim. Yeah, you can get into all the girlfriend, boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about all that. There was quid pro. The only reason she got the job she got was because of quid pro quo. Period, point blank. And so for him to say that is a blatant lie. But of course, it is a lie that he can push because it's Shaun. And every time somebody calls out Shaun, somebody that he believes can't fire back, and get the pull and get the pushback that he would get and get people on his side like he would get, he tries to crush them with his necessity to dox anyone who calls him out on his bullshit, who ironically enough are usually black people who've worked for him or worked with him in some capacity. Isn't that funny? So in every election before now, I would say that being from California wasn't really an advantage in the Democratic primary, but this year I'd say it's actually a huge advantage, one that she is not really benefiting all that much from, apparently. The California smartly moved its primary up from June, where it almost doesn't matter, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Where's she? This is what I'm talking about. When I say that Shaun has to rely on black people getting shot down for him to have any chance of being relevant in the black community, it's because his political analysis is trash. Like, to say that the California Democratic primary is meaningless, really? It's a little bit more meaningful now, but it's actually meaningful in a harmful way. It could completely sway the trajectory of the election disproportionately and convince people that if California votes for this person and they're quote unquote blue, then maybe every other Democrat should do the same. I think that the country is a little bit more woke than that, but to pretend like it was meaningless before when that's not true, and that it's more meaningful and there is therefore a good thing now when that's not necessarily true either, just once again is, in my opinion, a display of how much he does not understand this political process or the primary in general. So he says, so whoever wins California will be competitive no matter what. And she'd be hard to beat there. She's won multiple statewide elections and several by a landslide. Just as a brief recap, Beto O'Rourke did pretty damn well in Texas, right? And that's a red state. He did pretty well in a state that is not really known to favor blue candidates. He fundraised a lot of money. You know, he ran on trying to be the next Bernie of Texas. Beto O'Rourke is running for president right now. How's Beto O'Rourke doing? Even in polling in Texas, how's Beto O'Rourke doing? Beto O'Rourke just had to relaunch his presidential campaign because conventional logic doesn't work when we have all of the facts here in front of us, Shaun. It doesn't work like that. You can't just decide how the facts are going to be understood by the people. Because when you come from a state where your sole job was to put the most black men in jail than any other time in the history of the state of California, do you not think those chickens are going to come home to roost? See, unlike you, I know my history too. And I know the Democrats have a habit of liking to rig the elections for people they know will be useful to them in the future. Especially when that person in particular has a sister who is one of Hillary Clinton's top 3 campaign advisors. But see, you don't do your research, so you don't know things like that. So her very first job, she did not get on her own. It was quid pro quo. The DA job, hard fought. I'm not going to take that away from her. The AG job after her DA job was a bit of a problem though. And there was some scrutiny about that position. So where you're not even like qualifying your statements within, she's going to be hard to beat there. Okay, why? Bernie Sanders that's damn near, obviously other than Vermont, his most popular state. Tulsi Gabbard, that is absolutely her most popular state. Every time she goes to LA or San Francisco or any of the surrounding areas, it's like she has overflow every single time. And I'm interested to know what it would be like when she announces a rally there, because she's only done town halls because she really wants the people to get to know her. So I'm interested to know what those numbers will look like with a rally. Mind you, the Bay Area has not forgotten what Kamala Harris did to the people there. The black people specifically have not forgotten. Hell, I found out a lot about Kamala's record from my damn grandmother, who is only pseudo-politically active, who lives in the Bay Area. They don't like that woman. But you're caping for her. Pulling. Listen. This is what he said. But I also have to keep it real on the fact that since she has been a senator on issues of criminal justice reform, she is, because he just dragged her. Well, not dragged her. He talked somewhat honestly about her DA and her AG. But that's, when I say somewhat honestly, let me be honest with you. He makes excuses for her, actually. He said, I do want to keep it all the way real this morning because I think you're going to hear some of this in the days ahead. And I want to prepare you for it. Not that I want to tell the truth, but I want to prepare you for it. I want to soften the blow. In criminal justice reform circles, including many of the teams that I am a part of, who have many people that Shaun has doxed himself. We have always had deep skepticism. Don't we now. Don't try to we now. You just put on that whole cape for her, Superman. They had skepticism You haven't wrote a single negative article about her. I've never seen one report about any of the things that Kamala Harris has done, even though a few of the things were national news. Keeping people in jail, so for slave labor, holding prisoners and ignoring federal court rulings to release those prisoners, or that particular prisoner, because the cops were found guilty of lying. And they were just scapegoating that man. You didn't write about that. But some of my friends in the space would probably give her an F. Probably breaking records for putting black men in jail. I guess we probably give her an F. Let's see what Shaun gives her. For much of her time as a district attorney and an attorney general of California. And she did make some truly awful decisions that I think she will have to address over the course of her campaign, which she has absolutely failed to address. But I think she was more like a C- and not an F during those years. It was not all bad, and anybody saying so is lying. But it wasn't great, and that was for a good 20 years of her professional life. But these are things that all come out in the primaries. But also, I have to keep it real on the fact that since she's been a senator on issues of criminal justice reform, she has really changed and evolved to be one of the 2 or 3 most progressive people in the Senate. What? Oh my God, let's continue. She has co-sponsored many of the best bills on justice reform, and I do think it's authentic. Based off of what, Shaun? She's not even running for senator again, and she has like this much of a chance of winning the presidency. But they thought that they could anoint another candidate, not realizing exactly how horrible Kamala Harris was. So she didn't really think she was going to have to do any of that. But you think it's genuine. Based off of what? What criminal justice reform legislation? I need examples. What? Because she said, we're going to make lynching illegal. Hate crimes are already illegal, Kamala. Murder is also already illegal. You're just introducing legislation for name's sake, and you haven't passed any significant criminal justice reform legislation since you've been a senator. And also, not to mention, while you were in California, you went where the money told you to go. I close with this thought. She did pass my first personal test. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Hillary Clinton also passed Shaun's personal test. So how much is that test actually worth? I've said this on the show several times. I'm looking for senior campaign staff hires for all the presidential candidates, and she hired a very brilliant and diverse team from day one. She literally hired Clinton's entire staff, the ones that lost to Donald Trump, and for some reason thought that it was smart for Hillary Clinton to not campaign in many key states like Michigan. Yeah, brilliant and diverse. And that's great news because that really hasn't been the case for Democrats. Kamala was the first one to announce unofficially, I believe. No. Tulsi, I think, was the first one to announce. Kamala announced unofficially like within the next 5 hours. So I don't know where he was. I'm not saying that. I know that Democrats as a whole can lack in diversity with their hiring, but where is he getting that? Let me continue. And that's great news because that hasn't really been the case for Democrats. But things are changing. And these first candidates are clearly hearing our demands as they hire staff that looks like America. I don't get it. So last time you were okay with... So he was okay with Hillary Clinton's staff all of a sudden. He's grown okay with that. Before, whenever he was cheering for Bernie in the primary, he wasn't okay with Hillary or the way that her campaign was ran. And now that Kamala has adopted almost her entire staff, it's all gravy now. That's just fantastic. Let me go ahead and get to some of these super chats before we move on to Symone. 3 reasons Joe Biden will not be president. Not a member of Congress who voted for wars in Vietnam and or Iraq. Was later elected POTUS. Oh, no member of Congress who voted for Vietnam and The Rock were later elected for POTUS. True. No former vice president unseated an incumbent POTUS. That is also very true. Biden opposes Medicare for all. 100% agree. Natalie Chavez, thanks for the super chat. Orange County, California. Bernie and Tulsi. Yeah, they run Orange County and LA County. There's nobody that's the district you really need to win. So, but as you can see, this is the man who is now taking pictures with Bernie Sanders in his little photo ops. Because that's what Shaun does. See, I don't know if you all know this, but me and Shaun, I actually, at least on a acquaintance or a colleague basis, was emailing Shaun back and forth. We were trying to actually strategize for what to do in case Bernie Sanders was cheated at the convention. We were coming up with a game plan, how we're going to organize and things like that. And let's be honest. Shaun just stopped writing when we were supposed to meet, but this was right after the primary had concluded. And of course, after I go to his tweets, figure out why, because he was pushing Hillary immediately after he wrote article after article, tweet after tweet about how bad she was for black people. All of a sudden, she was okay for black people again. Instead of saying, well, hold on, we can't just move on. We need to have accountability so that this does not happen the next time, because Hillary was just not viable, and because of there was no excitement for her. People don't vote based off of a negative consequence. It's just not a thing. People vote, however, for a potential positive outcome. It's just historic. You need an example? Look at 2016 election. So when I emailed Shaun about this, I'm like, hey, man, I know you might think that Hillary Clinton is somehow reformed out of nowhere. I don't know where you get that from, but I'm not going to judge you for it. I would love to have a discussion with it about you. We can talk on the phone. We can meet up for coffee, whatever. Didn't reach out. Then I tagged him on Twitter. I DM'd him, and then I tagged him on Twitter. Asked him, say, hey, man, I hear you. I get where you're coming from. I think you're coming from a good place. This is me trying to be optimistic. Some would say naive, but I was trying to be optimistic, saying, hey, man, I hear you're coming from a good place. I get it. But the things that you're saying are not true. Like saying, oh, now, because what happened was when people kept bringing up the fact that, like, no, Hillary Clinton said she was going to continue to keep fracking. The WikiLeaks destroyed her. I don't even want to go into all that details. We'd be here for another 30 minutes. And then Shaun said, no, actually, he didn't say anything. He blocked me. He blocked me when I didn't even attack him. I just said, look, man, you're not really, the stuff you're saying is dangerous, and it's clear that because I was understanding, I was like, well, you don't understand the intricacies of politics and how things have to fall into place for certain events to take place, right? I said that. Like, for example, I said, people keep using the Supreme Court, and you can't really use that as an example because TPP was in play at this time, and people keep forgetting that. And Hillary Clinton hasn't really been known to shake hands with liberals or progressives anyway. Henry Kissinger was one of her role models. She said this herself. Her mentor, she said. So to get TPP passed, knowing what we know about how unpopular Hillary Clinton was, so maybe she won the presidency, but that doesn't, obviously that wasn't likely, but people still said, yeah, I didn't vote for the presidency, but I voted for all the other seats that I wanted to vote for, and the Republicans still took the House and the Senate back. So to play ball, what do you think she would have given up for the Supreme Court to get the TPP passed? Exactly. How do we even know that she would have put in a liberal judge anyway? How do we know that would have mattered considering that Kennedy stepped down? How do we know that wasn't just a ploy to get people to vote for Hillary? That's the real question. The truth of the matter is, given all the facts, given that we know Hillary Clinton will play ball with the neocons, not conservatives, but neocons, to get what she wants for the establishment and all of the people she owes favors to because of the Clinton Foundation, it was not going to be successful. She was not a good candidate, period. She would have been a horrific president. All the issues that we are talking about potentially getting into right now with Iran, Venezuela, and the like, Syria even, it would have been a guarantee. it would have been a guarantee. These are the facts. So he blocked me. And I asked him, I said, hey, man, you want to debate me? If you wanted to have a debate, we can have a moderator. And we can talk about whether or not Hillary Clinton is, quote unquote, more dangerous than Donald Trump. Because that was the angle that he was riding. Oh, he told me instead, mind you, as I'm in the middle of preparing the DNC fraud lawsuit with Jared and Elizabeth Beck, as I'm in the middle of an investigative, we had to put an investigative team, the same investigative team, I might add, that actually broke the Hillary Clinton Victory Fund information. We broke that. As I'm sacrificing my law school, my time, and all my damn patience, he's telling me that I'm not doing enough work. And I should be working instead of worrying about what Shaun King with 1 million followers is talking about. Because, yeah, Shaun, you literally live to stay in the spotlight. So, of course, if you're completely misleading hundreds of thousands of black followers, then I think that I'm going to have an issue with that, as most people would. But Shaun only has a problem when I'm misleading hundreds of thousands of black he doesn't only have, no, I have a problem with Shaun misleading hundreds of thousands of black followers, but he does not. Now, Shaun, for whatever reason, does have a problem with Symone misleading hundreds of thousands of black followers. Before we get into that, we'll cover some of the super chats. Cool Blue 71, thanks for the super chat again. Niko, right off 2020 Dem presidential candidates who failed to win their home state. Also, 50 states voted in the primaries since 76 Dems and 80s Republicans. Each president with the nomination won their home state in the primaries. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I talk about that often, actually. And I don't think that Kamala has the gravitas to win, because you have to be popular in your state. And because of the way that information can't necessarily be as controlled as it used to be, California, you're either actually popular or you're not. They're gonna try to rig it. Watch the absentee ballots and the voting registration and all that stuff. Watch all that stuff happen. But it won't matter, because I do believe that both Bernie and Tulsi are so popular that they'll overcome a lot of the rigging, enough for Tulsi to get 15 to 20%, enough for Bernie to get 30 to 35%, and then they'll split whatever the hell else down the middle. But California does love Bernie, and that's just a fact. Way more than they love Kamala. Ofuentes 11. He's a bit of a flip-flop. Absolutely, positively. Absolutely, positively. A little bit, a whole bit. And so let me go to the irony of Symone's response. Symone says, what's humiliating, once again, is the cape you blindly put on for the senator of Vermont every day. First of all, Bernie has his issues. He doesn't have a black problem, but he does have a blind spot, as I would expect any 77, 78-year-old white man from Vermont to have. I think that's kind of the norm. It's just a fact. It's just the norm, right? But the blind Kate, woman, you are literally blinded by money. All you see is green. So you thought, before you did adequate research on Joe Biden, I'm just going to take this job because he's a Democrat, he's a front runner, and I have a chance to be on a winning campaign this time. So if Shaun has done anything wrong, it definitely wasn't supporting Bernie. It's probably one of the only things he's done in the last couple of years that's been right. You are so ignorant that you couldn't even take 2 seconds. You're so lazy. You're so reactionary, so emotionally driven, because you don't have no facts on your side. Neither you nor Biden have that. That you couldn't take 2 seconds to figure out, well, who the hell has Shaun been supporting this election? Like I just did on Google. You could have said, do you want me to bring up your comments about Kamala, your advocacy for Kamala? And say something to the extent of, they've all made mistakes. You know how Dems do. They've all made mistakes. We just need to coalesce and unite together, figure out who the best candidate is, but we shouldn't be holding their past over their head if they look like they evolved, blah, 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 blah. I know how the spiel goes. That would have been better. But instead, she tries to demonize Bernie. Why? Because what movement has demonized her? What movement is way more popular that she probably thought wasn't as popular or wasn't going to be as popular as the Joe Biden revolution? Because she's over here on Twitter living her best life on Instagram and Twitter, hasn't taken a step back to remember the campaign that she was involved in, where Bernie had to go speak to Overflow after he filled a room of 12,000 people. So like I said, Shaun, if he is not good at anything, that boy is good at putting that finger in the air and where's that wind blowing? That's where I'm going, to the money. That's what grifters do. Grifters going to grift. But let's be clear. That's the only thing that Shaun has gotten right over the last couple of years. Politically, I mean, is backing Bernie. I wish Bernie would distance himself from him. But that's just, it is what it is. She said that no one defended the crime bill except for Joe Biden defended the crime bill and you defended him. And you couldn't just even bring yourself to say, like, I'm telling you, she could have literally she would have avoided all this. And she would have just said, the vice president misspoke. He misspoke. What he meant to say was that it was not the intent of the legislators for the crime bill to cause mass incarceration, and that he's going to do whatever he can to reconcile that going forward with radical criminal justice and prison industrial complex reform. That is literally all. Man, look, Joe, you want me to hire you as a ghostwriter? Or you want to hire me as a ghost? I got you, dog. I got you. Because Symone letting you down. Got a couple thanks for the super chat, YLG. You are appreciated. I used to rock with Shaun King years ago from watching him closely back then. I think his priority is himself and his image. I think he wants to be on the winning team 100%. Pleb. Roku MCSC has no videos. Yeah, no, I have to actually update the page. And that's something that's actually going to be done by the end of this week. So thanks for letting me know that. Well, first of all, I should still have some videos, but I'll go back and check again this evening. But by the end of the week, it should be filled with videos. But I'm in the middle of a software transition right now. So, but you will see those videos up there very, very soon. So thanks for checking out the Roku channel, by the way. But Symone did defend Biden. And I think that that's a punk ass move, to put it nicely, honestly. Let's continue for you to be petty on the internet. See, my thing is too, Symone, he didn't even tag you. He could have been a real asshole. He could have tagged you in this. He didn't do that. He could have. I would have, because I'm petty like that. But Shaun's a little bit nicer. I'm not. He is. So, but then you tag him. You quote the tweet with your guilty conscience. Because is there a problem, Symone? Why did you think that? Don't he have like 10 other black people in his campaign making excuses for the 94 crime bill and his defense of it? Does he have, he don't have 10 other people? Oh, it's only you? Damn. That should probably tell you something as well. I just find, and honestly, and yeah, like I said, y'all know how I feel about Shaun. However, he didn't personally attack her. He did not. He didn't. Like I say, I feel about the man, but he did not personally attack her. That's untrue. It is not true. But she took it like that. Why? Because a guilty conscience sings loudly, people. It does. And I just find it ironic, just from all of this, that the two sellouts are actually going back and forth about who's the bigger sellout and who should be more offended for selling out the black community, after they've been spending the last 4 years throwing the black community under the bus. Isn't that just hilariously ironic? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mika Says Su Casa. I appreciate it. Love all the super chats. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in about maybe 10, 15 minutes with another segment. I'm going to go wet my whistle and get some water, maybe get some food, laugh some more at this hilarious situation, and then we're going to be back on it. So stay tuned. Check back in a second. And more than anything else, people, Find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Roku TV, and on JustNForm.com. Also, you can make sure that you're subscribed to the channel by going to the subscribe button, pressing it, and hitting that notification bell to get all of our notifications. And of course, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon by supporting the show by donating as little as $1. You can click on the link in the description below for that. And remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.